a strong wife for my husband. I wanted to be a compliment to him as he was a compliment to me. I wanted to have that marriage that stands the test of time, that generations and generations and generations from now, they'll be like, wow. Hey, sweet teas. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Tea and Talk, where the tea is always hot and the talk is always sweet. If you're new, welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thanks for sipping with me. I'm your host, Tafiea. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you never miss anything Tea and Talk. All right, let's get into it. First of all, I want to say thank you all for listening to the newer version of Tea and Talk, which is focused on wifehood. I recently had a baby boy, my second baby boy, and so I've been busy, but I've been trying to consistently create content and audio podcasts for you to listen to, and hoping that those have all been helpful in your journey in wifehood. So thank you. I appreciate you all more than you know. I wanted to talk about how important it is as wives to changing the way our bloodline does marriage. And let me tell you about that. Growing up, I didn't have an ideal marriage in my family that I would necessarily look up to or want to be like per se. It was very far and in between in our family to have a woman married. My mother wasn't married, but I did live in a two-parent household with my mother and my stepfather until I was about, I want to say 7 or 8. And although they weren't married, I did see some things that my mother did and how she acted that I would say I took away from. Even though she wasn't married, she sort of acted as if she was. They'd been in a relationship for about 9 years and they were planning to become married. And so there were some characteristics that she did that sort of stuck with me a bit, as far as when you step out and you're representing you and your man, things of that nature. But as far as a marriage to follow, as far as someone who was in that mindset of being a wife, there weren't many, if any, women in the family to look up to. I knew back then that I wanted to be a wife. Like, of course, you see the Disney movies, you see the cartoons, and you fall in love with your Prince Charming, and you go away on a white horse, and he builds you a beautiful home with a white picket fence, 2.5 children and a dog, right? And I wanted that for me. I didn't see that. I didn't have anybody to go to see that, but I knew that's what I wanted, and I knew that that was going to be a game changer for me to get it. Now, I was young and naive back then, and even up until my 20s, I was still young and naive because I didn't quite understand what it took to get there. And meaning, I always say, when you get married, it doesn't necessarily make you a wife. And if you listen to the other podcast episode entitled The Number One Secret to Marriage, which I think is perspective, I didn't know what it took to be that. I didn't know what it took to even get there, meaning in my 20s, I was really lost as far as in my love life. I met my husband at 23, thank goodness. But prior to that, I was really lost in relationships and not understanding my worth, not knowing how to love myself, not knowing how to be my full self, always shrinking and holding myself back, and really not knowing how to navigate that realm of being in a relationship, not knowing how to navigate the world while being in a relationship, if you will. And I met my husband, and it was different. It was definitely different. We met when I was 23, he was 22. And I say met because we met as adults. We went to high school together and we hung out with the same crowds of people, but we connected when he was 22 and I was 23. And things were just different from the get-go. Like he was a different type of man. He wasn't like any of the boys I dated. He was a different type of man. He was charming, he was warm, he was sweet, he was loving, he was generous. He was no bull crap type of guy. And I just saw everything in him. I saw him and I saw me being with him and I saw us being together and being married. And it was very early on in our relationship because we hadn't even moved into our own home yet. But we began talking about marriage. He knew and I knew. I knew for sure because just the way he went about things, just everything about him was different, and I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to be in that world with him. And even then, even knowing that and seeing that, I still had a lot of work to do on myself. Just because, I knew doesn't necessarily mean things change right away for me. Of course, I was, working to change for me and for my relationship, right? So I had to start to reflect and look at the things that were holding me back, that were stopping me, that were causing me to shrink, that were causing these issues that I had with feelings of abandonment and not understanding my worth and not understanding what it meant and what it took to love myself fully. And I started to really, really, really work on myself after the marriage. I should have been doing it before, but I was still so naive. We got married when I was 25, he was 24. And I just remember that being the happiest day, one of the happiest days of my life, just walking down that aisle to my husband and knowing that, damn, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with this man who is the man of my dreams, and I got that now, right? I got that unlocked. That was the most amazing day of my life. Now, being married doesn't make you a wife. Okay? Being married does not make you a wife. And I talk about this in the episode, The Number One Secret to Marriage, because even though you say I do and you celebrate your vows with family and friends, it doesn't necessarily mean you that right then and there you're a wife now. Yeah, semantics. You're a wife, but are you really a wife? Like, have you really become a wife? And what I say in that podcast is that things depend on perspective. You have to change your perspective. That's the number one secret that I've learned in marriage. And I've been married for almost 10 years, 10 years in May of this year. And the number one thing I learned was perspective. Like, you can't go into marriage and become a wife with the same mindset that you had when you were a fiance or a girlfriend. Things have to change. You're not only in it for you. You have to worry about your husband. You have to worry about you guys together. It's not a I, me, my. It's we, us, ours, right? That's where the perspective change, you have that, all that has to change. And that's why I say, just because you're married doesn't mean you're a wife. I'm sorry, and say what you want to about that, but it's very true for many other reasons. But this episode would be super long if I even went into all those reasons. But it took me, after the wedding, I had to really dive deep into shadow working and going and peeling back layers of hurt, trauma, pain that I was dealing with and manifesting as depression, anxiety, stress. And I learned so much more about myself to then be able to heal those parts of myself. to then be even better, perform even better as a wife in my marriage. And that is something that I take pride in, is the work that I've done and how I got from where I used to be to where I am now are two totally different Tafias. Like they don't, I mean, I don't even, they're two totally different Tafias. I am way more confident now. I am way more just grounded now. I am way more loving of myself, compassionate of myself, strong wife in my marriage, a great mother. Like it, all of that takes you actually doing the work to peel back layers to understand what's causing you to act this way, what's causing you to do this, what's causing all of that. And if you don't take the time to peel those things back, then you can't embody that wife that you want to become. And the wife that I wanted to be was a Disney princess. No, but the wife that I wanted to be was a strong wife for my husband. I wanted to be a compliment to him as he was a compliment to me. I wanted to have that marriage that stands the test of time, that generations and generations and generations from now, they'll be like, wow, that's where it all started. The Stokes, their marriage was great. And I want to be able to change the way our bloodline does marriage, because prior to me, the way that our bloodline did marriage was they just didn't do it. They were independent. They wanted to be independent women. They didn't need a man for this if he wasn't adding this. And they didn't understand what it took to be in marriage and what it took to be that embodiment of a wife. They didn't get it. And I got it even then at a young age, but I didn't get it until I was in the marriage. But now that I get it, I want to be the reason that obviously we're breaking generational curses, but also the reason that, hey, this is why so many of us after the Stokes are married. You know, I have two boys, and I want them to be able to look back and say, Mom and Dad had a wonderful marriage. And if I can't have a marriage like that, then I'm just going to keep searching for that woman, right? I want to have a marriage like Mom and Dad had, because Dad was so loving and Mom was so caring, or whatever the case. But I want to be the reason. I want to show them what a healthy marriage is, what a healthy relationship is, what a wife looks like, what a great mother for their children looks like. And I want to change the way that we do marriage in our bloodline. Um, you know, my there's been some family members that are in my generation that have gotten married, and it's just like, wow, like we are the game changers in our family, because we're changing the way that things were done. We're not focused on this independent black woman mindset or what have you. My brother's married, my cousin just got married last year, and it's amazing just to see how we've deconstructed these barriers in our family to be like, hey, this is what they did, but this is not what we want. We want to show our children this. So it's just amazing to see that. And I want to continue to be that and do that and show family and friends, even, like, this is what it is to be a wife. This is what a healthy marriage looks like. This is how it should be done. And that is that is what I'm going to continue to do. So, all right, sweeties. I know I probably talked your ear off, but I definitely wanted to get that out there and share that with you. But if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe below. Hit the notification bell. Like and comment this video so it gets pushed in the algorithm, please. And until next time, love and light.